Ugh. Ugh. Man, this coconut's really hard to get out of this tree. It must be stuck. Urgh. Come on, coconut. Man, these are so much easier to get out of the tree when there's a strong wind blowing. Speaking of strong winds, have you ever heard about a hurricane? Well, if you haven't, let's go read about it and find out. Okay, boys and girls, we just finished eating our coconut. Now we're going to learn about hurricanes. So today I'm going to be reading you the article called Hurricanes. This article is written by E&K Educate, and this article is considered to be a non-fiction text. So when we read non-fiction text, it means the information in the text is true. So this is real facts. This is true information. It is not made up. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to talk about it. There are some important words in this article, and they are in bold print. Okay, so when an author, especially in an article, includes bold print, it's there for a reason. It's important. So when there is bold print, you know something is really important, and the author wants you to stop and think about that. So while we read this, we're going to stop and talk about the words that are in bold print. After we read this article, we are going to watch a little clip about hurricanes, and you're going to be able to see hurricanes with your own eyes. All right, let's get started. Hurricanes. Pounding rain, super strong wind. That's what a hurricane is. Okay, so we are at our first bold print word, and that is wind. Wind is just the air. It is the movement of the air, the natural movement of the air. Okay, a hurricane is a giant storm that can last for 1 week. During a hurricane, winds blow 75 to 200 miles an hour. That's faster than cars go on the freeway. Okay, so the freeway is like the interstate. And when we're driving on the interstate, our cars can go anywhere from around 65 to about 75-ish miles an hour. And that's pretty fast in a car. But a hurricane is much, much faster. Okay? Hurricanes always start over an ocean and then move towards land. When they are over land, the hurricanes come with lots of rain, strong and high-speed winds. Those two things can get together can cause storm surges. A storm surge is a big wave that can cause flooding. Okay, so we're at our second bold print word, and the definition of that is a big wave that can cause flooding. So imagine a very large wave, and this large wave goes crashing into the land. Okay, so that's what a storm surge is. It's just giant waves, and they're a lot bigger than what a normal wave is if you're just here at the beach. Okay, a hurricane can cause damage to plants, trees, buildings, homes, and cars. The storms are big, and when you look at them from space, the storm looks like a giant cloud donut. In the middle of the storm is a calm and clear part called the eye of the storm. That is our third bold print word, boys and girls. And the eye of the storm is the calmest part of the storm. You're not going to see those high-speed winds, and you're not going to see a lot of rain. It's just very calm. It's right in the middle of the storm. Hurricanes only happen near water that is very warm. The water needs to be 80 degrees or warmer. The ocean water usually gets this warm from June to November. So June, July, August, September, October, and November. That's 6 months out of the year, boys and girls. So that is a long period of time. The warm air and water come together and push the air up. This causes clouds to be created. The storm surges caused by hurricanes happen along the coast. Here's another bold print word, boys and girls, and this time this word is coast. The coast is the land that is near the water, so near the sea. The coast is where the land meets the water, so like on the beach. The strong winds of the hurricane blow the water and make big waves or surges of water. The water level rises and can cause flooding. It is considered a flood when there is a lot of water on land that is usually dry. So in this case, boys and girls, if it is flooding, it means the water is where it's not supposed to be. So if it is flooding and the water gets in your house, water is not supposed to get in your house, right? So can you imagine how high that water is going to be if it gets in somebody's house, especially when it's not supposed to be there? I know I can't imagine either. When a hurricane is forecasted, you should begin to prepare. So forecasted, boys and girls, is another bold print word, and that means you are making a prediction of the weather. Okay, so it's just a prediction. They're going to guess how it is. And ed is at the end of the word. So when ed is at the end of a word, that usually means it's past tense. That means it has already happened. But we've talked about that before. To prepare your house, board up the windows. This will make sure the wind and the debris don't break the windows. This is our last bold print word, boys and girls. Debris can be plants, trees, pieces of building, and other things in the hurricane's path. Also, make sure you have enough food stored for several days. Check to make sure you have lots of batteries, flashlights, and a radio that works with batteries. You need these supplies in case you can't go to the store because of flooding and unsafe conditions outside. So, boys and girls, the reason you have to have this stuff is sometimes when a hurricane occurs, there is a lot of flooding and the water is so up high you can't get out of your house. You might get trapped if you try to go somewhere else. And the reason why they say to store food is that way you don't get hungry. So it's really important that you do that stuff. It is also common during a hurricane for the electricity to be damaged because of the storm and be turned off. That's when you lose your power. Listen carefully to the news, and if the experts say you should evacuate, do so right away. If your shelter is too close to the beach, try to find another place to stay during the storm. After the storm is over, stay inside until it is safe to leave. Make sure you avoid flooded areas and any power lines that the storm may have knocked down. Okay, so that is the end of this article. Now we are going to watch a video about hurricanes.
A hurricane is a huge storm with powerful winds and lots of rain. They can be up to 600 miles across and make a spiraling shape like this. Hurricanes are formed over water in tropical areas, and they use warm water as energy. They can move 10 to 20 miles per hour across the ocean. Most hurricanes happen entirely over water, and they aren't dangerous to us. But when a hurricane gets close to land, they can cause a lot of damage. Their winds can be up to 200 miles per hour, and they can knock over trees, power lines, and buildings. They can also cause tornadoes, thunder and lightning, big waves, and flooding. The hole in the center of a hurricane is called the eye. It's a clear part of the storm, no clouds or rain at all. But the area closest to the eye wall, has the fastest and most dangerous rain and wind. Hurricanes are given names by weather officials. For example, this is Hurricane Matthew. It's a powerful hurricane that formed in October 2016. When a hurricane comes, there are a few things you can do to make sure you stay safe. 1. Keep emergency supplies like flashlights, food, water, and a battery-operated radio. 2. If the storm is powerful enough, you might need to board up your windows to make sure that they don't break. 3. Stay away from low-lying areas that are prone to flooding, and don't try to drive in those floods. 4. During the storm, stay inside. 5. Have an evacuation plan in case the storm gets too powerful. If your state's governor says to evacuate, then you should be ready to leave immediately.
Okay, boys and girls, so we just finished watching the video about a hurricane. So I thought it would be a great idea if we make our very own hurricane in a jar. I think it's going to be so much fun, and most of this stuff can be found at your house anyways. Okay, So before we can make it, I need to go over the materials that we need, and I'm going to go over the directions, okay? So the first thing you need is a jar. It is called Hurricane in a Jar. So you can just use any old jar that you have. I would use a glass jar, but a plastic one works just as great, okay? You also need water, okay? So I have my water. Next, I need soap, okay? And you do not have to use this specific brand, but you need to use soap that has glycosterate in it, okay? Next, you need food coloring. I chose blue because the ocean is blue. Then I also include glitter. And the glitter is going to be for the debris. The last thing I use is a spoon. Okay, so we have all of our materials. You can find these materials at home, or if not, you can easily go to the store and get all of these. They're not hard to find. Now I'm going to go over the directions with you before we actually make it. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is, it says to fill the jar approximately 1/4 to 1/3 full of soap. Okay, so when we make this in just a second, we're going to use our soap first, and we're going to use 1/4 to 1/4 of the jar. Okay, the next step is add water to fill up the rest of the jar. Okay, so once we add that soap in, we're going to add our water next. It's really important that we do that. Our next step is to add 1 to 2 drops of food coloring. Okay, so we're going to use food coloring to make it look like the ocean. Okay, and my directions do not include using glitter. This is just something that Miss Brooks wanted to include because I thought it would be a lot of fun. Okay, and then we'll mix this afterwards. Okay, let's get started. Okay, boys and girls, we are now going to make our hurricane in a jar. So let's begin. Our first direction says fill the jar approximately 1/4 to 1/3 full of soap. So we're taking our soap that has the glycosterate in it, and we're going to fill it up to 1/3. Right there. Okay. The second direction says add water to fill up the jar, the rest of the jar. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so we just filled up our jar with the water. So now we're going to add 1 to 2 drops of food coloring. Again, remember we're using blue because it's the ocean. Okay. Now, remember this isn't part of the directions, but this is something that we have added to this. So we are going to add glitter for the debris. Because remember, the debris is the broken pieces of plants, trees, buildings, all of that stuff. So now I'm going to mix this up a little bit. And then we will get ready to start our hurricane. Okay, so remember, a hurricane is a really big storm in the water. And we are going to shake it up. So if you watch what I'm doing, you can see all of that. You can see all the debris and the clouds moving. The clouds that are in this jar is from that soap. So we're going to get it to spin really good, and you're going to be able to see that hurricane in the jar. You're going to be able to see it spin. So we have to spin it really hard because we have to pretend that this is our super strong winds. Okay, do you see that? So the more you shake it, the more it's going to spin, and that is what a storm looks like. Okay, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed making that hurricane in a jar. I think it is a fun science experiment to do, and you can easily do it at home. I hope you found that to be fun, and I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I'm looking forward to the next one. Bye, guys.